Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the networking session on Gather Town. And now we will move to our next speaker, Mr. Abdullatif AlJabr, who will be joining us to talk about AI in agriculture, empowering small farmers. Abdullatif AlJabr is the president of Double Feathers and Harvard Business School graduate who previously worked at the Ministry of Environment, Water, and Agriculture in Riyadh. Welcome, Mr. Abdullatif AlJabr. We are so happy to have you with us. Feel free to introduce yourself and start with your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Noor, for the introduction. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so today's topic will be about AI in agriculture. On the agenda for about 30 minutes, we'll go through the AI economy, also the impact of AI on agriculture, then followed by the case for change, some numbers on the agriculture, followed by the agriculture use cases that we developed. We'll cover a little bit about data, and finally, with the last 15 minutes, after the 30 minutes, we will go through a Q&A. A brief background about myself. I'm an engineer, an MVP AI developer. I started my career 15 years ago in the energy, oil and gas, then to the automation, environment, water, and agriculture. So I really look forward, and I hope that you enjoy the session. So the AI economy, this is maybe the section I don't like most, because there are a lot of numbers, and usually the economic feasibility stops a lot of great ideas just basically because they are not feasible. But let's be positive and look at the AI numbers. On the top left, you can see the market size of cloud computing in 2020 was around roughly $240 billion. Below that, the number of sensors that are connected to the internet are expected to nearly double in 2025 compared to 2021 or 2022. Also, on the right, you can see the global amount of data produced, which is expected or forecasted to be 180 zettabytes by 2025. Also, the market size of AI software is expected to double also, and to be $120 billion in 2025. So just another slide on the numbers. MGI, or McKinsey Global Institute, has estimated or forecasted that the value of AI will be around $13 trillion to the global GDP by 2030. And I think also PwC has a number that is around 15.7 trillion. And as you can see, most of the value of AI is in supply chain globally. So that's for the economic part. Let's go now and have a look at the impact of AI on agriculture. Here is another study on the use cases of AI. And I will try in this presentation to focus more on AI. It's very hard to separate it from the classic automation, but I will try to focus more on AI. So if you look at this also study about the influence of AI or the use cases, 3 of the top 4 areas are economic empowerment, environment, health, and hunger. You can see the dots around the circles. And going a little bit more specific on the economic empowerment, most of the use cases are on the agriculture quality and yield. On the environment side is the animal and plant conservation, land and air and water conservation, and also health and hunger, which is the second target on the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Looking at the technologies in the mostly related to agriculture, deep learning, of course, or the multi-layer neural networks when we used to study them in school at that time. Today, we have the infrastructure for the processing for these deep, complex algorithms. Also, with the support of the cloud, we can get real-time calculations and learning from this technology. Computer vision also I'm sure you're all familiar with. I think it's one of the important technologies in AI for the machine to identify, for example, the crops, at which stage they are, and several applications. I will come to them later. Also, the third one, which is the autonomous vehicles. And here I'm not referring to the drones that are controlled by humans. These are drones that have sensors that are connected to the cloud that can take decisions live for irrigation, for example, purposes, or any other risk mitigation for pests or anything that affects the harvest. And also the sensors. What we're seeing today, there are a different level of sensors which have real-time data and have the mini machine learning. They can do real-time analytics while they're connected to the networks, which is also something a little bit challenging right now for the infrastructure and having internet for farmers and in rural areas. Looking at the agriculture supply chain, these are just current available technologies. Later on, I will discuss a use case we developed. And I'll go just through three or four maybe of the following. The first one on the financing section, if you're all familiar with Ant Financial, they have a 3-1-0 method, which means for their clients, the 3 minutes to apply for a loan, 1 minute for the algorithm to decide yes or no, and at 0 human interface. This is completely without any human interaction in this model at Ant Financial. And similar to it is Farm Drive also, that companies that give farmers access to microloans, which is a market even for big financial institutions. They find it very risky for small businesses and also for small farmers in particular. It's even harder to fund them. I think there is also not just AI, even on blockchain technology. I think IBM has food trace, and it verifies the orders for the small farmers, the coffee bean farmers, and with this, they can receive with the verified orders, they can receive micro funds, $5,000, $10,000 per season to harvest and produce more coffee. So that's on the finance side. On the production, of course, price optimization is very important. The challenge with the food or fresh products agriculture is that they have a short lifetime, from 3 to 30. Some go up to 60 or 90 days, depending on the type of fruits or vegetables. So optimizing the price models and algorithms that can, for example, depending on the type of fruits or vegetables with the farmer, a model that can look into 10,000 cities and predict which 3 or 4 cities that would be the best, or locations that can be the best for the farmer to target. It will save him a lot of time and remove a lot of intermediaries to get a better optimized price. And not just only cities, it can be done on different markets and paths. Also, another use case, digital farmer education. We can just imagine models that can, for example, tell a farmer use fertilizer X instead of Y. It will yield a 10% increase automatically without any human intervention. I think this will be a breakthrough for small farmers. they can get the analytics, the predictions through machines with the enough data to provide them with better practices. And this also, I went through a survey for 2 years for farmers from 2017 and 2019, and it was really astonishing. As the farmers said that they did not find the technology is not up to date or up to what they need. So they're looking for more technology and better. This was a survey by McKinsey, I think, in the United States. And on the distribution and storage, as I mentioned, the short life cycle for agriculture, having optimization on storages and forecasting the best markets automatically by a model would yield a lot of great results. So that's for the supply chain. I'll just go through a little bit of numbers about agriculture and why we need to deploy AI. So there are a lot of high costs in the agriculture. There is around $1 trillion of GDP of food loss and waste that costs the economy. 10% of global consumers is on food and agribusiness with roughly about $5 trillion. And as I mentioned earlier, the days life shelf of fresh agriculture products is around 3 to 30 days. And on the externalities, today we have 20% of the land is considered degraded today. And with the same practices, we're expecting that 95% of the soil deterioration and land degradation by 2050. And also with the same practices, we would need twice the amount of money of water compared to in 2050 compared to last year. Also on the poor reach, I think today we have 2 billion people on planet Earth that do not have access to clean water nor access to safe, nutritious food. This results in, I think, 24,000 that die every day. Half of them, or above half of them, are children, unfortunately. And also 1/4 of the agriculture globally is in water-stressed regions. And 20% of children also suffer from different diseases. And of course, we cannot neglect the effect on climate. 26% of greenhouse gas emissions are by agriculture, and they're forecasted to increase by 15 to 20% by 2050. Also, every 1 degree increase in climate, it reduces the yields for wheat by 6%, rice 3%, maize 7%. And these all together form 2/3 of the caloric intake of humans worldwide. So just to wrap up for this slide, I mean, as the subject suggests, doing more of the same, I don't think it is what's needed in the coming decades. We need to do a lot of different things. And as Dr. Rami yesterday talked about the status quo and challenging it and disruption and innovation, I think these economic numbers needs to be disrupted. We need to do a lot of efforts and leverage AI as AI will empower and help to reduce these numbers or hopefully take them out of the economic system. So now I will go through the use cases that we developed within a project in one of the clients. I will start by what we did. We started initially by looking at the projects. There were around 126 projects. We classified them in 4 categories: data, if the project creates data or not; sensors, if there are any sensors that are going to be installed; application, websites, and things like that; and logistics, farms, factories, and labs. So that helped us to guide and how to look at the projects and see whether it builds an infrastructure for AI or whether to look for AI opportunities. So the use case I will be talking about now is about honey production for beekeepers. There is a whole chapter in the Quran describing called for Al-Nahl, describing the bees and how they heal humans, and also on the scientific side, on the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, bees do a lot of important things to biodiversity through pollination. They increase the food quantity. They improve the food production for about 2 billion small farmers. They also increase the yields. They also increase the food quality by the pollination process. Of course, the bees also need favorable environments. They have to live in natural, non-toxic environments. And their biggest threats, of course, are pesticides and the climate change. The increase in temperatures does not help. And I think in 2008 only, in one state in Europe, there was one type of pesticide that killed around 500 million bees unexpectedly. So I think there are a lot of threats and technologies need to be deployed to help save the bees and increase the production. I think also the global production has been stagnant on honey, except for Asia. It has been increasing the couple of last years. So as my colleague Abdullah Nasser yesterday mentioned, it's very important to develop a model to understand the business and not to work in silos. The business needs to be, the AI department cannot work on its own. It should be aligned with the business and who's utilizing the use case. So on this use case, the deliverables were to have a dashboard with the current beehives around the kingdom, and also to increase the production. And just a little bit on that, that's on the deliverable side. On the business, it's very important to understand that the seasons for beehives is from 1 to 3 months, it depends. It also mostly are in remote locations. There is no infrastructure, no internet, no phone signals. And also it's important to know that the humidity increases the honey production, and there are a lot of threats like pesticides and locusts for these rural areas. So the classic project was a UPS battery with a solar panel and a SIM card to transmit the data and a GPS signal. So this was the plan initially for 15 or 20,000 beekeepers. I mean, I can't. We cannot neglect the effect on the environment of lithium batteries, and also the solar panels. I think have a lifespan of 20 to 25 years, and plus the plastics and the impracticality for relocating the system with the beehives when the season change or the location changes. So what we did is we understood the business very well, and we developed a very simple model, which is just a computer vision software on a phone that takes 3 data. One is the image, the second is the timestamp, and the third is the GPS location offline. This model does not require any live connection. There is a mini machine learning on the tablet or the phone that reads the number of beehives after training the model, and it counts the number, and it takes the users or the small farmer approval of the correct number. If not, he enters the correct number, and it goes to the data scientists and they look at the reason why the algorithm or it did not, they investigate why the accuracy is not high. So imagine taking all of these thousands of systems out of the ecosystem and replacing it with a scalable application that can be installed on any phone globally. I think this case is the first step to develop better outcomes and predictions for small farmers. After building this system, we will have some additional network effects, as Professors Marco and Karim at HBS taught us. I will talk about the network effects of developing this model. So there are some that are not related to AI directly. The small farmer can increase his income by notifying people who are interested that there is a beehive around this location, and they can visit him through the coordinates if he wants, and they can purchase directly from this farmer. The other digital or non-AI point that can be utilized is, for example, the transboundary pests. The farmers can anytime enter in the application that there is a certain threat, and it will notify the farmers that are around or in that area. So that's also a risk mitigation useful thing. And also the same thing applies for pesticides, as this can be an early detection system between the farmers themselves. So these are the network effects that can be done without the AI, but I'll also now explain several models on AI. Once the first use case is developed, we can develop an algorithm to predict the best locations. For example, for farmers that don't have experience, because one of the targets is to increase the production. Farmers that enter this area can, with the use of the app, it calculates the flowers, where are the current farmers or other farmers, and suggest and predict automatically where would be the best location based on the moisture, maybe some satellite images on the locations for good harvesting, and depending on the season, and maybe some experts' input on the data. So with that, we can, any new comer for honey production can easily download the app, and it will tell him where to put his beehives. So that also takes us to another model to predict the number of bees in every beehive and every location. That will also take us to another model that can predict the production, the expected or forecasted production by area. I think this will be very valuable, and it will also can link the production to the best markets. All this without human intervention. Once the model is working and to a certain accuracy, it can do all this without any human intervention. So before we wrap up, it's very important also to think about the success principles for any use case like this, or trustworthy AI. So I think it's very important to guarantee user privacy, and I think the application should be optional. And also it's very important to develop an incentive plan for small farmers to use this application. Once they see the value and the information that this application can provide at the tip of their hands, I'm sure they will utilize it. And of course, we can assume that 70% will subscribe and use the app. Also, I think internet is very important, as the areas, the application will be offline. It will have the mini ML on the phone. It will analyze. And once it's back online, it can synchronize and upload the data to the databases. Also, the users, there should be transparency, and they can access and delete their data anytime. it's also important to educate the value of the models and the application. And most importantly is not to violate or use the data against the user in any way. Now, just before we wrap up, I will talk a little bit about data before the Q&A, because I think there will be a lot of questions on data. So the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization issued in 2020 a platform which is called Hand in Hand. It has, I think, 1 million data layers for the last 10, 20, 30 years, depending on the country data available. They made a lot of partnerships with a lot of NGOs to provide this data globally. So, and also as colleague Abdullah yesterday on myth number 0, when he said data is very important. Yes, data is very important. You need to make sure the right data is there, but maybe big data or too much data sometimes does not help. And also the experts say that in the future, the machines will be less artificial and more intelligent. As they learn by time, they would need less data. So also, I think during our research, we found hundreds of open APIs for NGOs that provide a lot of data on the planet. So there is a lot of data around there that can help develop a model. So as a summary, as I mentioned earlier, don't make data an excuse. You will always find a way to develop a model. I've seen a lot of great companies, especially in the healthcare, that started their strategy to get access to the images of MRIs, to analyze them and to build models around them. And then they changed their model, and in 5 years, I think they were worth $5 or $6 billion US dollars with a higher accuracy than the previous way. So yes, data is important, but don't make it an excuse not to start. The other point, I think, which is very important, focus on decision-driven than data-driven. And it's more like the MIT way, is there are 2 ways. You look at the data and try to develop a model, or the other way around, look at the business and then try to build it backwards, see what is the most valuable model. I would say look at the business first, look at what is required, and look at the complexity, the data required, and then build it. Or even the other way is not also a bad idea to start with. Also, keep in mind the network effect, how developing the first use case of identifying the locations opened up a lot of opportunities for small farmers. And also start small. You don't need to start with an accuracy level, a very high accuracy level. I know it depends on the application and the importance, but once you start small, you can scale big immediately, as these algorithms can be deployed on hundreds of thousands of locations and phones immediately. And as Novartis president says, aim for progress, not perfection. You would start at a certain percentage of accuracy, and you can improve it with time and with your data scientists until you get a really perfect, unbiased model. Of course, must understand the business, as Abdullah Nasser yesterday emphasized on. It's very important to work together with the business. And as I experienced, there are unlimited possibilities and use cases that can be made in this on AI. So I think we're about 30 minutes right now. I'll leave it now for questions and answers.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullatif, for your talk. Very interesting. So everyone, if you would like to share your questions in the chat or unmute and ask Dr. Abdullatif a question, feel free to do that.
First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Abdullatif, for your very insightful presentation. One question that comes to mind is the application that you have just described related to bees is already deployed. And it can is it deployed right now and it can help newcomers to the bee industry and can use it now, or is it still in development?
Yeah, it's still not deployed. No, not yet.
Okay, very, very insightful, nevertheless. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So no more question, guys. Thank you, Mr. Abdullatif. It was very interesting. I personally really liked the talk.
You're welcome. Great to hear that, and have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone. So hope you liked the talk. And now we will move to our next speaker in a bit. Not now. He's the Dr. Ramzi Halabi, who will be giving us a workshop about deep cardiology. We will wait a little bit until he's ready. So stay tuned. You can meanwhile go to Gather Town and connect with each others. If you want, I sent the link in the chat. And at 2 p.m. Beirut time, we will start with the workshop.